So with update 3.0 hitting TestLive, the Conan devs did a Q&A live stream. We're going to be recapping that stream today to answer some of the most pressing questions about Age of Sorcery. So firstly, monetization for the Battle Pass and Bazaar are disabled on TestLive. Dennis explained this as a back-end issue with the account system, and they would rather people not spend actual money on items in a test environment, so it is disabled for the TestLive servers. It did seem that they wanted to find a way to work around this so people could try out the stuff in the Bazaar and the Battle Pass, but either they simply ran out of time or couldn't make it work. There is no solid release date for 3.0 yet, but by virtue of the update being on TestLive, it's likely sooner rather than later. Personally, I'm guessing about a month or so. Andy reiterated how important TestLive is for squashing bugs that the team just cannot find. The date for the update will likely be locked in once certification is complete for consoles, so the update can roll out uniformly across all platforms. Andy stated that the Battle Pass can be progressed on private and modded servers alongside single player and co-op. Dennis added some context to this in that the Battle Pass has to be formulated differently for a survival game, as opposed to something like Call of Duty or Fortnite, where it is somewhat based on your performance in a set match, hence why they chose to use the challenge-based system. He also added that from his own experience trying to balance work and life at home with his kids, that it was important the Battle Pass respected the time of the player and did not require constant grinding, but could be completed in a reasonable amount of time. Future Battle Passes will have different themes, which is something that has been mentioned before. Not every chapter will be based around sorcery, as future chapters and ages will take on different themes and story-related content. Each age will likely have 2 or 3 chapters. An age is basically an overarching season, with each chapter being a sort of sub-season that will last for about 3 months, so each age will likely last 6 to 9 months. In format, it's quite similar to how Rainbow Six Siege formulates their content drops. Dennis also briefly recapped some of the contents of the Battle Pass, though he did state that the placement of rewards is not final. He also restated that if you reach level 57 of the first Battle Pass, you do get a full refund of Crom coins to purchase the next one, and this will remain same for the future passes. On the topic of challenges, Dennis mentioned they will be collecting data on challenges and pass progression when 3.0 goes live to get a gauge of how the community at large is progressing. If it seems people are progressing through the pass much slower than expected, they'll be increasing the experience gained to bring it in line with estimations, and this is set up so that it doesn't require an actual patch, but it can just be hotfixed in. They are also working on a variable experience system for the challenges, as the experience rewards at the moment are static for each difficulty category. He also briefly touched again on challenge multipliers, which you can bank up over a few days so you don't lose time on the pass if something comes up in real life. Challenges are also based on your progression through the game, so new players will receive easier challenges than people logging into a level 60 character, to make sure new players don't have to slay bosses or traverse the entire map immediately. It was also briefly mentioned that all challenges, pass rewards and bazaar items are account bound, and thus will be accessible across any character past, present or future. The only exception is the spell flasks, which can only ever be claimed and used once, no matter how many characters you make. Dennis also mentioned in response to a question that any future single-use items will not be sold for money, as they don't want to sell anything that gives you power or is temporary. Everything in the pass or bazaar that you pay for will be permanent, and they are not keen on the idea of selling single-use items. There are no server wipes planned for update 3.0, and there are also no plans for crossplay or cross-progression yet. The crossplay section is something that was mentioned a while ago as being somewhat in consideration but not being a terribly high priority. The team are considering opening up the illusion mechanics to allow you to transmog heavy armour over light, and to make it so you don't need to know how to craft a weapon you want to take the appearance of. I think the latter makes sense for legendary weapon transmogs to a degree, though I would rather illusions be locked to armour weight classes for balance reasons. Dennis did say that it doesn't appear to affect PvP that much from what they've seen, and should if anything make fights more considered and respectful, as you don't really truly know the gear your opponent has, though they will see how that plays out. Old DLCs will remain purchasable through the first-party storefront of your respective platform. There is no top-end cap on how much XP you can gain in a set period of time from the Battle Pass challenges. XP multipliers do cap at 20 and you get 5 a day, but you could theoretically complete 100 challenges in a single day and you won't be capped on how much XP you're able to earn. Someone asked if Age of Sorcery is a free update, which of course it is. Dennis reiterated that the Battle Pass and Bazaar system is what will fund these future updates and make them free for everyone. He also addressed some of the criticisms of Funcom being greedy, and explained that they need the money to pay for development and staff, and of course to make the game even better, as that is what they are passionate about and want to be able to do to keep Conan going for years to come. Dennis also mentioned that their storefront has dynamic discounts for bundles that you already own segments of. This is on top of the discounts and sales they've mentioned before, which will likely take place for certain events and holidays in real life, just as Steam, Epic and other storefronts have sales on their games and DLCs. Andy also mentioned that the items in the bazaar do rotate, and the time of their rotations are shown on the item cards. However, everything will eventually roll back into the store, so nothing will ever permanently disappear. This may not be the case for some future items, the example given was seasonal ones, but I'm not a big fan of that idea. I think everything should remain available in the bazaar forever, even if they are only seasonal items. Dennis mentioned that DLC items from the pass and bazaar will not ship into the dev kit for modders. Apparently this has been the case with all previous DLCs to stop the more untoward modders making paid content free, and devaluing it for those that paid for the content, which does make sense. The current plan is that the battle passes will not come back, with rewards remaining exclusive to previous passes that can no longer be progressed. Items from the past passes will not be sold in the bazaar, though heavily modified versions of certain standout items may eventually make it into the bazaar with significant stylistic changes. Dennis said that this is because the battle pass is easy to complete, and he thinks we'll understand that decision more once we get our hands on the pass. As I've said before, I'm not a massive fan of this, and I think changing it is a great opportunity to allay some concerns about FOMO. That being said, if the battle pass truly is really easy to complete and respects your time as a player, this may not be as bad as a battle pass that is extremely long and arduous to progress, like Warzone or even Black Ops 4 from a few years ago. There are also some changes to locomotion to make your character behave in a more realistic way when running, holding weapons, etc. It's subtle, but it does work nicely. Dennis mentioned that with the building system rework, you cannot share building pieces from DLCs with others. However, this was more a byproduct of the new system and not a targeted decision. That being said, if you have a clanmate with a DLC you wish to build in, they could always construct your base for you. You also cannot pick up building pieces anymore, but instead, deleting pieces with the construction hammer now gives a full resource refund. The nerfs to thralls, which a lot of people have been very cautious about, have been targeted to make them less necessary, and they mention that a few thralls stand out as incredibly powerful, like Tamos the Beastmaster. Authority is designed to make thralls a conscious choice, and fully speccing into Authority will restore them to their previous damage, alongside adding other perks and attributes, though their health will not reach the massive amounts it did before. Animal companions have been untouched by the nerfs to thralls because they were significantly weaker, and thus the team didn't feel like they deserved to be nerfed too. They briefly recap the process of corrupting attributes. It's pretty self-explanatory, requiring soul essence to corrupt your skills. I'll have a full deep dive video about attributes, both normal and corrupted, coming soon. They also mentioned that for sacrifices you unfortunately cannot sacrifice players. This is likely because some people would definitely find ways to grief others with this mechanic, and it's a very understandable decision to make. Permanent corruption scales directly with how many corrupted skills you have, so as you begin to corrupt your skills, portions of your current corruption will become uncleansable until you reach the 50% cap. The only way to then remove that corruption is to reset your stats. The devs reiterated that Sorcery is based heavily upon Howard's source material and rarely interacts with combat. The devs reiterated that Sorcery is based heavily upon Howard's source material and rarely interacts with combat. Instead, it's meant to be almost entirely utilitarian, and there won't be fireballs or magic missiles as it just doesn't fit into the lore. Both the Exiled Lands and the Isle of Siptar have equal access to Sorcery, which is really important for accessing the teleporter pads on Siptar. On that topic, teleporter pads are still vulnerable to enemies, so you can inside raid bases if clans leave their teleporters lit and vulnerable. The way to counter this is to defend your teleporters and extinguish them if they're not being used. Teleporters do have a debuff when you go through them, giving you corruption based on how far you teleport and stopping you from teleporting again for a minute, so there is a risk with attempting to raid from the inside. There is also no limit on how many portals you can have, though I doubt you will need that many to get around Siptar or the Exiled Lands, though there is a limit of how close you can place teleporters to each other. There is no strict level cap on Sorcery. Whilst you will likely have to level up to access all the spells, you could theoretically learn all the spells at level 1 if you had access to all the relevant workstations through a clan member. Finally, there were mentions of a couple of changes that Dennis wants to make in the future, namely targeted at making play more sociable. This includes making the player list visible again, and working on adding proximity voice chat in the future. And there we have it, a full recap of the Update 3.0 Q&A stream. Thanks for watching. There were a lot of small and niche questions that were asked and they were briefly covered, but these are the main questions and answers coming out of the first 3.0 Q&A stream. I've also included a link to the patch notes in the description below. Of course, I'll be covering 3.0 throughout TestLive and into release. I do already have a few videos scheduled and more coming down the line covering all the new features, so stick around to see those, or you can join our Patreon to see those videos early. On that note, a massive thanks to all of my patrons for continuing to support the channel. Again, thank you very much for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.